So today we're gonna start with our Awas top 10 critical vulnerabilities. So what is Awas? So let me tell you in the layman language, Awas is your security policy, which is basically used to secure your web applications, which is your APIs and your websites. So Awas top 10 came with 10 different standards and 10 different vulnerabilities that could be caused to attacker to gain exploit. So one more thing, this is the Awas top 10, which is 2018. Every 3 to 4 years, Awas top 10 standard will change. So you can see the list is usually refreshed in every 3 to 4 years. So when our developers are basically developing some applications or the website, they basically follow the standards to protect their application part. So in this scenario, you can see. Let's go to the bottom side, and over here we can see the Awas top 10 standard, which is from 2013 to 2017. So our major concern is, you can see the first A1, which is always injection over here. This is 2013 and this is 2017 over here. So these are the standards which is from the one by one in a proper sequence. And many of the interviewers, they ask questions in a proper sequence way. So remember, you have to read about those, all the things and the standards. And we're gonna read about the definitions and executions and the causes. So over here you can see the first one is your injection, the second one is your broken authentication and session management, and A3 is your sensitivity exposure, A4 is your XML detect entity, which is your XSE, A5 is your broken access control, A6 is your security misconfiguration, A7 is your cross-site scripting, A8 is your insecure deserialization, A9 is your using component with known vulnerabilities, and A10, which is your insufficient login and monitoring. And over here you can see through the 2013, some of the application has been merged. So insecure direct object, which is merged with the XSS, merged with A7. Oh, sorry, and that was your over here. And this was merged with A4, your missing function with level access control, which is your XSE. So the most important thing we can understand, we're gonna start with the first one, which is your injection part, which is your the top critical vulnerabilities. So if I talk about the layman language about injection is an attack where an attacker simply inserts some malicious payloads in the statement of the query and execute in the backend side of the database. But over here we have only the front end. We can see the front end, but in the back end there would be a database server which is controlling all the things possibilities. So over here you can see injection attack occurs when the user is able to input untrusted data and triggering the application system to execute uninitiated commands. Injection can be your SQL queries, your PHP queries, your LDAP queries, OS commands. These are the 4 types of injections that could be cause the website to behave unfamiliar with the client sides. So they have given some questions over here. For example, what to inject? As we have know, a queries OS command is just like your operating system commands. The codes, the URL manipulation, which is the data which is flowing from the URL sections. Where to inject? Wherever a user input is required and user can modify the data. It can be a text box, a user box password field, a feedback field, and a comment field, etc. Why to inject? To check whether the application is vulnerable or not. So the first important thing, we're going to take a demo website. We are not going to try in a real website over here. So I have a website which is called your test.php.oneweb, which is your home of Acronetics art. So this will be our testing website today. Before that, you can see over here on the EC Council PDF files. In the EC Council PDF file, you can see understand the SQL injection concept, understand the various types of SQL injection attacks, understand the SQL injection methodologies, understand the various SQL injection tools. Most of the pen tester, they work with the possibilities with the help of tools, using understanding the different IDS evasion techniques over SQL injection countermeasures and over various injection detection tools. Detection tools is also important. So You can see over here they have given the SQL injection is the most common attack, devastating attack that attacker can launch to make control of the website. Yes, this is an important thing. And what could be the possibilities if an SQL injection attack has been compromised the database server? What could be the impact? At the end of this module, we will be able to learn the following command: describe the SQL injection concept, perform various types of SQL injection attacks, describe SQL injection methodologies, use different tools, evasion divisions, and detection tools. They have given all the things which is necessary. So over here, let's go to the concept of SQL injection first of all. So how the SQL injection works. So let's see. Okay, so we have what is SQL injection. So we know that SQL injection is a technique used to take advantage of unsanitized input vulnerabilities. Unsanitized means which is not filtered or not checked by the server side, to pass the SQL commands through a web application for executing the backend database. We only have the front end, but in the back end there would be a simple database server. For example, see, we have a login form. Consider this one a login form. So this might be connected with any of the database server. So let's make it small over here. So for this reason, what we have a login form, which is a front end to us, which have a username and a password field. But if you talk about the backend side, we have some SQL queries. SQL or database could be your MySQL, your SQL, your MS SQL, or your oracles. Remember, there's not a single database server. There are 4 types of, and there could be another and many more, which works on a different port number also. So we're going to talk about this one later, but we have a front end side over here. So our major concern, what we're going to do, we're going to say, if I am simply write over here, Craw Sec, and the password Craw. So what would happen over here in the backend side? If I talk about the MySQL concept. So let's take a query over here, a simple query. So the backend query would be like your select star where table underscore name, table name, you can write table name is equal to your ID, where username is equal to Craw Sec. This is a string value, so it will encapsulate the value with a single quote or double quote, depends on the function. And the password would be your, again, Craw. From database, something like this, I guess. A simple query that can be called from the backend side, but we can see only the front end. But we doesn't know if there is a parameter with the username and the password. The first thing, remember, in the programming language, we have a string and an integer. Strings are basically your characters, and the integers are your numeric values. So what are we going to do when our data is passing through the backend of this database query? So if we are passing a string, we have to encapsulate with the single quote, double quote, single quote bracket, double quote bracket. It could be anything over there in the backend side. But if you are passing a numeric value, it could be a normal thing. So the first thing we need to understand how the MySQL statement works, or you can simply visit a website called W3 School. W3 School SQL Injection. You can write injection over here. W3 School. So over here you can see Sql injection is a code injection technique that might destroy your database. Sql injection is most of the common web attacking techniques. Sql injection is the placement of malicious code in the Sql statement via a page input. So if you're not aware about the MySQL statement, you can visit the W3 School to learn the basic concept, how it looks like. So SQL, you can see SQL in the web page. In the web page, we can see the query which is running in the backend side. Select star from user where user ID plus the user ID's text. This is a normal statement which is given over here, one by one. But yeah, when you are doing a pen testing of a web application, think about the behavior. The most important part is the API behavior. This is the important part. Behavior means the functionality of that application. Most of the hackers, most of the bug bounters, I will say the bug bounters, they basically understand the behavior. They take half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours to understand the behavior of the application, what exactly the meaning of that application, and what is the functionality, and what is the code mechanism. So there are various kinds of tools that you can use it for attacking phase, and there are lots of other techniques. I will say the best place to learn is the W3 School. You can learn over here, or we can see the concept. If he doesn't know the attacking concept, we can see the EC Council pages. So you can see SQL injection is a base attack used to gain unauthorized access to the database and retrieve information directly from the database server. It is a flow in the web application and not our database or a web server issue. See, database is a normal thing. It's a flow of the web application which has a normal part. Why bother about SQL injection? Why? What is necessary? Because it can authentication bypass. A login form can be also bypassed. Information can be disclosed over here. Compromise integrity, availability, and the data. Integrity, it means the alternation of the data. Availability means the data which is transferring from the two nodes, which is client A and client B, and remote code execution can happen with this attack. That's why this is in the top of the critical vulnerabilities of your Awas top 10. So yeah, you can see over here what is SQL injection. Structured query language is a textable language used for a database server, and they have basically some operations includes like insert, select, update, and delete. These are the 4 crucial or the technical ones we can see. Insert, select, update, and delete. These are the 4 things which is worked on the SQL injection part. So we can just focus on the application part. So remember over here, SQL injection and server-side technologies. Most of the websites has been based on PHP or ASP. We have to figure out the technology which is using over there. For example, yes, retrieval queries. For example, I have this website, so I have to figure out which technology they are using for their maintaining of the website. So what I can do, I can use a tool called WhatWeb. -v verbose and the DNS name. So that would be my testphp.wormhub.com. So through the WhatWeb, we can identify the technology which is used on the server side to make it a proper registry. So over here, you can see the queries that the http.wormhub.com is basically running Ignite server, which is your 1.4.1, which is known as banner grabbing part. Banner grabbing is a process where we need to identify the services plus their specific version, which is running in the server side. You can see the email address, the activation code, the object, Adobe Flash Player, PHP version. See. There are lots of other techniques and other tools that you can use to identify the web technologies part, as they have mentioned one by one. So I will say the word called Recon Reconnaissance is the important part where you have to gather as much as information about the web technologies can be possible. For this case, see over here, SQL injection and server-side technologies. Server-side technology is the first one. Powerful server-side technologies like ASP.NET and database servers allow developers to create dynamic data-driven websites and web pages and inaccessible cases. Dynamic means it can be changed according to the server side. Exploit the power of ASP.NET and SQL can be easily exploited by the hacker using Sql injection attack. Suspectable database. All the relation database, SQL Server, Oracle, IBM, DB2, MySQL are susceptible to SQL injection. As I mentioned you, these are some databases over there. Attack type. SQL injection attack do not exploit a specific software vulnerability. Instead the target website and web pages that do not follow security coding practice. It's all about the manipulations of the stored data, manipulating the data stored on the relation database server. So over here you can see they have given understanding the post request. Post request, which is usually following the data which is on the login form. When a user provides information and click the submit, the browser submits a string to the web server and contains the user credentials. The string is visible in the body of the HTTPS post request. You can see over here. But what will happen in the backend? Select star from user where username is Indo Smith and password is equal to Simpson. But over here, we can understand how the attacker tried to understand and how the attacker simply look for the vulnerabilities of SQL injection. So let's have a look over here. So I'm going to write a simple SQL injection detection so consider this one as my domain name, which have a file type with the programming language question mark with the parameter is equal to value. So what exactly this is, I think you already know about this one. For example, let me show you. If you are using facebook.com, the facebook.com had we made a page called login.php, which might have a parameter which can redirect the client request, redirect with a value. You can use anyone. But in the real scenarios, consider this one. If a domain name could be anything, for example, see this actual website. So the very first thing is to crawl to identify if you can find any parameter value which is interconnected with the database server. And something would be like, let me show you, SQL injection Google Docs. So we have some list of Google's collections. New Google Docs list collection for SQL injection, SQL Docs 2019. And over here, what we can see, Google helps for Google Docs to find vulnerabilities in index of Google search result. Here's the latest collection of Google Docs. Thank you so far. And it's very easy to be used. Common SQL injection technique, your DOS attacks, to tamper database records, privilege selection part, identify spoofing, data disclosure. Check this one. I'm going to copy some of this one, some of the queries. Compare this to this. You will see the same thing. There will be nothing different. The file type is over here is view item. The programming language they are using PHP. The parameter is the ID and the value is null. The home is the file type. The programming language they are using PHP. See, all the things are similar. Remember one thing. The first stage that we have to do in finding the SQL injection is to recon. The recon means crawling part. Identify the number of parameter values, and the parameter values could be your, like example, I will say something like ID. Some might be items. Some might be your clothes. It could be anything. So for the automation tool, we're gonna use some automation tool to identify the SQL injection, as we used the burp suite yesterday. So over here, I'm gonna use a tool called SQL Map for crawling process. So over here on the application, we're gonna look for one by one. So information gathering, database. So in the database assessment, we have SQL Map over here. So if you doesn't know the SQL Map, so you can write manual SQL Map to read about the concepts. Automatic SQL injection tools. Simply definition has been given over there. I was thinking that there will be huge definitions of this one, but there is a novel thing. Okay, so let me tell you what the one thing. Most of the pen testers, they are basically focusing on the automation part. We don't have that much of time to simply look for the parameter values one by one on the server. So in this case, what we're gonna do, we're gonna try to manipulate or figure out the loopholes. I will say the loopholes might be your parameter values. So let's have a look on this one. So we have -H for help, version, so program version number. That's a normal thing. Okay, so target. At least one of these options could be provided to define the target. So -U for URL, the target URL, you could say. And remember one thing: when you are using the -U, specify with the ID is equal to 1. It's with the parameter value. But in this case, we don't have the parameter value to be executed. Or we can use -G, which is your Google Docs. Process Google Docs reserved as target URL. We can see some request. Remember, there are two types of request: a get request and a post request. So if you're using the data strings to be sent through post, which is ID is equal to. You can specify the cookie parameter also. For example, you have to specify the cookie parameter. This SQL injection can be happen in 4 categories. Let me tell you about attack of the SQL injection can be happen in 4 categories. There are 4 types of attacks. So the very first one, if we talk, let's go move it over here. Okay. So the first one is your get method. The second one is your post method. Okay, capital T. And the third one is your cookie parameter attack. And the last on the list, which is your header attack. So these are the 4 categories which can be helped in the finding of the parameter values, because the SQL injection can be happen in these 4 categories. Over here, we're gonna try to manipulate today only the get parameter, but there are other 4 also. So in this scenario, what I'm gonna do, we're gonna use the automation tool of our SQL Map. So I'm gonna update this one. So first of all, let's check all the possibilities one by one. The random agent. Let's move on over here. Injection part. If we have the specific parameter, like your ID is equal to 1, this option can be used to specify which parameter to be tested for, and provide custom injection table. For detection part, detection part is basically used to boost up your scan or advanced scan. So you can use -F level, which is from 1 to 5. And you can say this is an insane scan. It will take a lot of time, depends on the web crawling part, because website doesn't have the one page. There might be around lots of pages. Risk is also for your advanced scanning part. Then we have some techniques. Then we have the enumeration word. So over here, the enumeration, we have all retrieve everything. It's an aggressive one. -D banner, database banner, current user. We're gonna use -tables. We're gonna use these things. If you want to enumerate the table names for any of the database, we use -tables. And if you enumerate any column names, we use -columns. And one more thing, we're gonna use the dump command to fetch the data from the server side. and we're going to use -D to specify the specific database, and -T, which is your specific table name, and -C also, which is your column. So over here, what we're going to do, I'm going to use a crawl function. So you will not be able to see the crawl function, which is, I guess they didn't have mentioned the crawl function. So let me show you. I'm going to use SQL map -u, which is the URL I'm going to paste, and we don't have the parameter value, but we're going to crawl the entire website. So I'm going to copy this one, and I'm going to paste it over here. I'm going to use -FN crawl function. So in the crawl function, we need to identify each and every possibilities on the server side, and we need to identify the directories also. So I'm going to use crawl is equal to 1. The first parameter value, thread execution. Thread execution means faster execution part. So let's use crawl 1. So do you want to check the existing sitemap example? I will say no. We don't have that much of time. So you can see searchable for link with the depth 1. No usable link found with the parameter 1. So let's use -FN level to increase the part. Let's use 1. Let's use risk. So what would happen? You have to increase the crawl part also. Okay, please enter the number of threads. I will say, okay, let's use 1. So what we can see, running in a single thread mode, this could be while, okay. So link visited, there were around 11 links, see. 11 links, and they got on the 9th one, 82% as done. Sample got by 302, which is your redirection, found something, they found something. So they found testphp.vulnhub.com, which is login.php. Okay, can we visit this one? Okay, so this was the part. We can visit this one properly. So do you want to follow the test? I will say yes. Do you want to store the crawling result in the temporary files for regular? I will say no. So over here you can see they have found the first parameter, which is artist is equal to 1. So over here we can see testphp.vulnhub, which is artist is equal to 1. So consider this one as a parameter value. So we find the parameter value, which is artist is equal to 1. So artist is just like your column name on the database table name, but this is an integer value. So as an attacker, what we can do, we basically check for error handling. Why I'm using error handling? Suppose if Craw Security is a username, the parameter value has been encapsulated with a single quote. If I simply use again a single quote, it will disbalance the query part because there is another parameter, another delimiter over here. So through the exception handling, we can check whether the server is vulnerable to SQL injection or not. For example, see, where is it? Let's try with single quote, and we have a MySQL error. And what we have, MySQL fetch array, expect parameter 1 to be resource, boolean given in the HTTP via www.artist.php. So they are simply disclosing you could say a directory or a path file. Let's try with, you can try double quote also. Okay, you can try double quote also. Same error. Let's try with the backslash. I mostly use backslash. We have the same error. So it means in the backend side, the server is running MySQL. So let's have a crawl more for the things. Do you want to test the URL? I will say yes, please. So the most important part, remember, most of the pen testers, they basically focus on the Boolean type of SQL injection. There are 3 categories of your SQL injection. One is your union based, one is your error based, and one is your time based SQL injection. And the time base, there are two types, which is your Boolean and no, it was blind. Okay, sorry, it was blind, error, and union. In the blind SQL injection, they are time based and your Boolean based SQL injection. So over here, you can see they have sent a payload which is 1 is equal to 1 with the artist 1, and they are sending 404, 4084, 4084. Why? Because this is a true statement value. True statement value, it means a true condition over there. Suppose if I'm simply writing my cross-sec and password craw, so it's a true statement for the database server. So we need to specify this one as a legal one to authenticate a proper validation part. So we have to balance the query first of all. Then you can see they have simply put a sleep command, select 5574 from select sleep, which is from 5 seconds, and some junk words, which was time based. You can see this was time based blind exclusion. This was Boolean type, and this is union query. Union queries are basically used to merge two and more queries in a single statement. See this one. If you search for the union over here, union operator, see. The union operator is used to combine the result set of two or more select statements. And each statement in the union must have a same order or number of columns. The column must have a similar data type. The columns in the each select statement must be in the same order. So you have to specify all the things one by one. So they're using union all select statement. They have put the value negative 996. Why they have negative the first one? Because they want to execute the second query, which is this one. So they are using null value to identify if there is any parameter values. They are using junk words, some binary codes over here. This is the buffer memory they are using. The buffer, if you convert this buffer memory in the ASCII value, you will see something else. So do you want to exploit this SQL injection part? I will say yes, that's fine. So you can see the backend database is MySQL server. Web application technology PHP version, you can see the server version, which is Ignite 1.4.1. The backend server is MySQL with the version of 5.0.12. SQL injection vulnerability has already been detected against the testing vulnerable part. Do you want to check the further step? I will say yes, please. So over here, you can see they have found some parameter values. Check. The first one was your artist is equal to 2, artist is equal to 3, and some are they have given all more parameter values, which is on your cat1. And over here, find the result of the scanning in multiple target modes on your CSV file, which is on your root SQL map output file. You can see over here. They will capture some logs. See. You can see your output over here. So if I copy, let's copy this one to get over there. CD. So we have our data result, which is your test php.vulhub, which I've done. And I have other SQL map also. You can see the output which we saved over there. So the first thing is to find the crawling part, which is used to identify the number of parameter values. So I'm gonna use any of this one. So let's try this and let's try this. So we have artist is equal to 2. So what I'm gonna do, let's use backslash. If you can see any error handling, we have some error, but the error should be something like, let me show you. The error should be like this. Let's copy this URL. So I'm going to paste it over here. So we have cat is equal to 1. So let's have a backslash. The error that you should have is just like here. This you have an error on your SQL syntax. Check the manual corresponding to your MySQL server version for the right syntax to use near single quote at the line 1 warning MySQL fetch error. See, I was talking about if the parameter value. See this one. I'm using single quote. The parameter one was encapsulated with a single quote. Let's try 2 double quote over here. See. The best thing to identify the parameter value which is encapsulated by the single quote or double quote, you can use backslash, and I can see the ID is equal to 1 was encapsulated with the single quote parameter. So the balancing the query is an important thing, where you can simply use it for animation part. So if when you find that the server is vulnerable to MySQL Server version, the most important thing what you do is you have to copy the URL with the parameter 1, and over here I'm going to use my Sql injection again. So this time I'm going to use SQL map -u the URL with the parameter value which is vulnerable, which is cat is equal to 1. So let's have a backend look. Second part, identify the database. So over here we're going to use -DBS for databases and animation part. So what I'm going to do, when you find the parameter which is vulnerable to your MySQL server, you can use cat is equal to 1, and I'm going to use -DBS to database animation part. When if you are facing any problem with the SQL injection, kindly use the level on risk, because for the advanced scan, as I've used, the crawl part has been done. Remember always, if you are not getting anything and you want to do advanced scan, or you can use level 1 and risk level 1. So I'm going to use -DBS. So let's hit enter, and you can see, assuming the backend database is MySQL as per the need. The testing connection is the target URL, and look what they are using. First of all, this is not important how the functionality is working. First, they are using the Boolean type, Boolean-based blind SQL injection, which is a true and false condition they have prepared. Cat is equal to 1 and the function and 101. Then they use error-based SQL injection. Error-based SQL injection is an attack where an attacker simply put some error, put some error on the server side, and the server replied with some kind of error in the reveal information. It reveals some form of databases in the error form. So over here you can see MySQL version is 5.0, which is error-based. We are having order by clause. Order by clause you can see over here. The order by keyword is used to sort the result in ascending and descending order. So over here they are using order by function to identify one of the parameter values. So they putting some buffer memory over here from the information schema. Information schema is the architecture of any of the database file. So you can see they are using the time-based explanation again, and the union query. So the union query, they find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so through the union connection, you can see they have simply put a payload on the parameter value. Null value. Remember one thing: the null value is basically used to identify the parameter values on the server side. You can set the column names, and over here we can see the MySQL database is 5.0, and the database name is AccuArt. And there are two databases. One is information schema and one is your AccuArt. Information schema is the architecture of the database, but we're going to use AccuArt, which is a database server. To use the specific database, what we do, we use the SQL map -u, the specific URL, and the capital D. If you find any of the database server, so you have to use the capital D to enumerate. So the database name was AccuArt. Now in the database, what is the most important thing? Is to find the table names. So for the table names, we're going to use -, tables, as I mentioned you. So let's try -, tables. So again, they are using the same queries to identify the things, and over here we can see the table names one by one. So these are some table name which is given over here to extract. So the table name like your artist, card, catalogs, feature, guest, pictures, books, users. So you can use any of the table names that you want to enumerate. For example, if I'm an attacker, I'm going to look for the users, obviously. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do SQL map -u, the URL, -d, the database that was acquired, and the capital T. Why? Now we have to, if we are using a specific table name, so that time you have to use the capital T, database enumerate. So the table name was users as per the data over here. So this is a table name that we're going to use users. So users table name must have some columns. So we're going to use columns to enumerate. This is a step by step. First you need to find the database. Then you have to find the table names. In the table names there will be some columns, and that could be used for further things. For example, you can use -n columns, enumerate databases from table names. So hit enter. So over here you can see that we have enumerated the table names, the column names. Sorry, there were around 8 columns from the table name users. So in this scenario, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use for we have address, we have card, CC, email, name, pass, and phone number. Okay, we have username and password also. So let's try this one. So I'm going to use capital C. Now we're going to dump the data from the each and every table column names over here. So I'm going to use uname, comma, password. Oh, it was not password, it was pass only. So over here, either you can dump the specific thing, which is your uname and pass, from the function called dump, or you can use the entire database tables, entire table with the tables entries. It's all up to you guys. So I'm going to use the aggressive one, or let's try with the first one, which is your dump. If you are using the dump command, it will only enumerate the specific columns that you have selected. So you can see entries from column pass and uname of the table users in the database acquired. The table is users and the uname and passwords, and you can see the queries over there. Let's use a disaster one. Dump all. Let's see what happens. It can check all the possibilities one by one. See, do you want to test this one? No. Do you want to okay, he finds some hashes over there. Let's use one dictionary attack. No. So SQL map can also use for dictionary attack also. Dictionary attack to crack the passwords hashes from it. And over here you can see they have find some MD5 generic passwords. So I guess this is gonna take some time. And it's gonna dump all the details if you simply use dump all. This was a vulnerable server. That's why you can see the artist also. The artist, the name of the user. And this was a default page. New RAM is also default page. Network storage, you can see the acquired product, they have given network storage data, which is entry of this one, a normal entry, because I use the dump all. They use some entries. For example, they have user names, emails, etc, password, something hash. Okay, they have some hashes over here also. No clear password found. So this was a hash. Let's type hash hyphen identifier. This was MD5 hash. So let's try to break this one in the online part. So I'm going to use hash killer. Okay, not this one. So we didn't find anything over there. So we can use this one for a later option part. I was just trying this one. So over here, we can see this automation technique was basically used to identify the loopholes or the server side. And we have already done the automation part. I guess yesterday, we have done the burp suite to identify the loopholes. So the data was passing through the URL parameter side. You can use the you can use your burp suite to identify the loopholes. This was an automation process where you can find the loopholes. But remember, the recon phase. The recon phase is an important thing. Most of the people I'm saying it's all about the security, and unless they use the SQL map to identify the entire crawling part, or you can say they are using the burp suite to identify the spidering function. If you look for the notes over here, see, understanding the normal SQL query. You can have, as I mentioned, you have the front end, but in the back end there will be an SQL queries which is running in the source code, server-side source code, bad login.aspx. ASPX is the application which is running in the programming language technology. So, for example, let's try with the one of the queries over here. So, yes. So let's try Google. I'm going to use SQL authentication bypass. Bypass cheat sheet. Let's try this one. So what exactly this is? Authentication bypass. This is a list can be used to penetration testing while testing for SQL injection. Authentication bypass, which is your login form part. A penetration testing can use it manually or through burp in order to automate the process. The creator of this list is Dr. Emin, which is a Awas board member. So you can see the normal thing, which is your OR function 1 and 1. So what exactly is this one? As I mentioned you, SQL injection types. There is union base, there is an error base, there is a blind base, and in blind base there is a time base and your Boolean type. So this 1 and 1 query or function 1 is equal to 1 is your Boolean type query, where an attacker simply put some queries in a true and false condition to bypass the server side. So over here, the OR operator is used for condition part. This is basically used for condition term. So, and 1 is equal to 1 is a true statement. So, what an attacker tried to insert a payload. That could be your, first of all, remember to balance the query. Is it a single quote or a double quote or a single quote bracket or a double quote bracket? So it's called balance the query. Sorry, it was balance the query. So if a login form has using a single quote or a double quote, so if I'm writing craw, this is a string value, so it could be a double quote. So first of all, if you're passing the data, you have to close the, for example, if we are creating a payload, so we have to specify the double quote first of all, then the condition, then 1 is equal to 1. And the most important thing, the minus minus plus, and the minus minus space. And the hash. These techniques are basically used to comment out the queries. So this is basically used on the get method. This is basically used on the post method. And hash method can be only used on the post, because we know that if we are a programmer, we are familiar with the hashtag specifying the things. And one more thing which I forget to tell you guys is these things minus minus plus and minus minus space can be lead to anything. For example, let me show you one thing. Sql injection swagger. And let's use the cheat sheet. So over here, see, that's the string concatenations, which is the Oracle. As I mentioned, Oracle, Microsoft, they use plus bar, PostgreSQL, using SQL. And SQL cheat sheet contains an example of useful syntax that can be performed a variety of tasks. And you can see over here, which was I was saying, in Oracle we use -FN for comment. From Microsoft also we use -FN comment. PostgreSQL we can use --, or for MySQL we use hash or --, space. You can see. Note that the space after the double dash. So this was space. Commenting out. You can use comment to truncate a query and remove the portion of the origin queries in the fall of your code. So you can see the database version, which is also given over here. Database version, Oracle's, you can see, Microsoft, PostgreSQL, SQL, and they have given some database content also. So you can understand the following backend process. You can list the tables in the existing database to understand the queries part, because each and every database server has a different query. Conditional error, the badge or stack, time delay. Time delay is all about your time-based explanation. Select sleep. PostgreSQL PG, wait for delay. DNS pipe, receive A is equal to 10. DNS lookup, you can see all the things is given over here. So Craw Security is my first query that if I stuck somewhere, I can simply look for the videos on the Craw Security. So those are free for everyone. You can simply enroll this one, and they have different challenges also. You can take a part. So over here, you can see SQL injection, union attack, examine the database, blind explanation, SQL cheat sheet. So we can simply learn over here also. So what is SQL injection over here? Yeah, they have a 10-minute videos and some queries. So they have some labs also over here. You can try those things later on. But my major concern was to understand how the functionality of the application works. So in this scenario, we're gonna copy this entire one. I already have a text file on my desktop, which you can see SQL. I already have mentioned those things. I have made a proper text file. Or function 1 is equal to 1. So it's a true statement to bypass the query. So in this scenario, I have mentioned more cases. Let's use that one here. So let's try. So over here, I'm going to use bug fit. So let's have a look on the bug fit part. So we're going to use bug. So temporary project, start bug fit. So go to the proxy. So first of all, I'm going to regenerate the CS certificate as per my need. Yes, so it was on the 127.0.0.8080 CS certificate. Save this one. Go to the preference. Right, cert, certificates, view certificates, authorities, import the certificate which you had downloaded. This was CS certificate.df. Just everything, yes. And what I'm going to do over here is we're going to enable the, if we are not enable this thing, yes, let's use it. So let's have a look. Is it running? So I'm going to resend the packet. And I can see the packet has been held over here. We can simply check one by one all the possibilities. So my major concern would be we're going to use, here we can see a pen tester can use it manually or through bot in order to automate the process. If it doesn't have the URLs, you can specify lots of other techniques. For example, in my case, what I do, I simply look for SQL authentication, bypass, cheat sheet, GitHub. See, 47 lines over there. If you didn't find something, you can go to intruder part. Let's see an intruder. There's some detection, exploit, and payload of SQL blind. Yes, SQL blind. We have given MySQL and MSSQL. So let's try MySQL. We can see insert order by where. So let's use insert, I guess. They have given if statement. See. Order by function. Select, start, if, count they are using. So it depends on the functionality of the application. Okay, so in this scenario, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a website, a normal website. So I'm going to use Ultra Mutual. This is a testing website. So over here, you can see the sign in page. So we have username and password parameter, and we have to specify. The first thing which we have to do is we have to intercept the packet. So I'm going to use 1 and 2, and I'm going to intercept the packet. Intercept is on, and login. So over here, you can see the backend process has been stopped. So the packet has been captured over here. You can see username and password. So over here, we're going to perform a Bobsuit intruder part. So send to intruder. Drop the packet. We don't need the packet now. So in the intruder, we can see demo test fire, which is a Coco 3 website. We can go to positions. We can see there are 4 payloads, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, but over here, we're going to use the uname and password. So clear this tag. So we're going to attack on the parameter value, which is your uname. We're going to add tag and the password. So we're going to add tag over here. So over here, we're going to take a proper permutation combination. So we have sniper, battering ram, pitchfork, cluster bomb. So I'm going to use cluster bomb over here. So permutation and combination. So let's see what can we see over here. So payload, we're going to load the payload. So that was SQL on the first payload. Then we're going to select the second payload. Load payload, the same dictionary, and we can see the total number of queries will be 2,401, and the number of count 49 into 49. We can see this one. And over here, we're gonna execute our payload part. So let's start attack, and let's wait. So you can see it's going to pass all the queries one by one. So you can see they are simply starting the queries one by one, and you can see the possibilities over, over here also. So our major possibilities over here, we're gonna check it through the response code, or we can try this one manually on the server side. It's all up to us. You can see all the things are. You can see that there are some error also from server side, which is 500. You can see internal server error. And if you check this one, the first one, it's also showing 500 error. These are two. They're showing us that they found something. Show response in browser. Copy this one over here. There's an error over there. So I guess we have to wait for all the possibilities to complete. Remember one thing, if you know the syntax, you can use single quote, the OR condition, 1 is equal to 1, minus minus space. You can try the universal key. And over here, I can see that it bypassed hello user admin. So the blind SQL injection is based on the statement queries on the server side that can be used in the very further stages. That can be helped to check the authentication bypass cheat sheet. And most of the pen tester they use intruder for this one. I guess right now it's 900 queries, 2401 over there. So our major perspective would be we're gonna check all the things over here one by one to specify the queries over there. So this was all about your SQL injection.